Hello everyone, so good day. By the way, I am 𝐓𝐿21-30. So for this video, I discuss to you my reflection about minutes of the proceeding on the national territory of the 1971 Constitution Convention. So now, this is my reflection. The Philippine Constitutional Convention of 1971 was called to change the 1935 Constitution of the Philippines. The delegates were elected on November 10, 1970, and the convention itself was convened on June 1, 1971. It was marked by controversies, including efforts to uphold term limits for incumbent President Ferdinand Marcos, and a bribery scandal which 14 people, including First Lady Imelda Marcos, were accused of bribing delegates to favor the Marcos. Marcos declared martial law in September 1972 and had 11 opposition delegates arrested. The remaining opposition delegates were forced to go either into exile or hiding within 2 months. An entirely new draft of the Constitution was created from scratch by a special committee. The 1973 Constitutional Plebiscite was called to ratify the new Constitution, but the validity of the ratification was brought to question because Marcos replaced the method of voting through secret ballot with a system of viva voce voting by citizen assemblies. The ratification of the Constitution was challenged in what came to be known as the ratification cases. A special election was held on November 10, 1970 to elect the delegates of the convention. Once the winners had been determined, the convention was convened on June 1, 1971 at the then newly complete Quezon City Hall. Former Philippine President Carlos P. Garcia was sworn in as the President of the Constitutional Convention. On the day the convention was convened, by deed 13 days after taking oath, former President Diosdado Macapagal replaced Garcia Sotero H. Laurel, served as the President pro tempore of the convention. A total of 320 delegates were elected to the convention, the most prominent being former senators Raul Manglapus and Roseller T. Lim. Other delegates would become influential political figures, including Hilario Divide Jr., Marcelo Fernan, Citerio Laurel, Aquilino Pimentel Jr. o Teofisto Gingona Jr., Raul Rocco, Edgardo Agara, Richard Gordon, Margarito Tivis, and Federico de la Plana. This part of the Constitution defines the national territory of the Philippines as the Philippines Archipelago, with all islands and waters embraced therein, and all other territories belonging to the Philippines by historic right or title, including territorial sea, the airpeace, the subsoil, and the seabed. Hello everyone, so good day. By the way, I am Wendell C. Crispolo. So for this video, I discuss to you my reflection about the role of Islam in the history of the Filipino people. So now, this is my reflection. Islam was the first recorded monotheistic religion in the Philippines. Islam reached the Philippines in the 4th century with the arrival of Muslims traders from the Persian Gulf, southern India, and their followers from several sultanates in the wider Malay archipelago. The first missionaries then followed in the late 4th and early 5th centuries. They facilitated the formation of sultanates and conquests in mainland Mindanao and Sulu. Those who convert to Islam came to be known as the Moros, with Muslim conquests reaching as far as Tondo, that was later supplanted by Bruneian vassal state of Manila. Muslim sultanates had already begun expanding in the central Philippines by the 16th century, when the Spanish fleet led by Ferdinand Magellan arrived. The subsequent Spanish conquests led to Catholic Christianity becoming the predominant religion in most of the modern-day Philippines, with Islam becoming a significant minority religion. In the 21st century, there is some disagreement regarding the size of the Muslim population. The 20,000 census report that Muslims comprise about 5% of the population, and a 2015 report of Philippine Statistics Authority asserted that 4.1% of Filipinos were Muslims. However, it was reported in 2004 that some Muslim groups asserted that the proper number was between 8 and 12%. As of 2020, the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos, or NCMF, estimated a figure of 4 to 5%, attributing the difference to a number of factors. Most Muslims live in parts of Mindanao, Palawan, and the Sulu archipelago, an area known as Bangsamoro or the Moro region. Some have migrated into rural areas in different parts of the country. Most Muslim Filipinos practice Sunni Islam according to the Shafi'i school. Hello everyone, so good day. By the way, I am 𝐓𝐿21-30. So for this video, I discuss to you my reflection about history of terrorists in the Philippines, an international fact-finding mission report. So now, this is my reflection. Terrorist groups have the intent and capability to carry out attacks anywhere in the country, including in the capital, Manila, and in places visited by foreigners, such as shopping malls, entertainment establishments, public transport, including airports in the metro system, and places of worship. Attacks have been carried out using small arms and improvised explosive devices, including both vehicle and personnel borne. Terrorist activity continues to pose a threat from groups such as the Abu Sayyaf Group, ESG, Bangsamoro Islamic Freedom Fighters, BIFF, Jemaah Islamiyah, GI, New People's Army, or NPA, and other associated groups. Some groups have pledged allegiance to this, formally referred to as ISIL, and are likely to regard Westerners as legitimate targets. British nationals are viewed as legitimate targets, including those engaged in tourist, humanitarian aid work, journalism, or business sectors. If you are kidnapped, the reason for your presence is unlikely to serve as a protection or secure your safe release. The long-standing policy of the British government is not to make substantive concession to hostage takers. The British government considers that paying ransoms and releasing prisoners builds the capability of terrorist groups and finance their activities. This can, in turn, increase the risk of further hostage taking. The Terrorist Act 20,000 makes payments to terrorists illegal. The goal of terrorists generally is to destroy the public, since security in the place most popular to them. Major targets sometimes also include buildings or other locations that are important economic or political symbols, such as embassies or military instinct. Commercial shipping companies have been advised to adopt the heightened vigilance when navigating the Sulu and Celebes Seas. The Regional Cooperation Agreement on Combating Piracy and Armed Robbery Against Ships in Asia, or RECAP, advised all ships to reroute from the area where possible. Most maritime incidents occur in the Sulu Sea, in the area between Mindanao, the Sulu Archipelago, Palawan, and Sabah, Malaysia. Boats traveling to and from offshore islands and dive sites are possible targets, and terrorist groups have threatened to attack passenger ferries and other vessels, particularly those operating from Mindanao. Hello everyone, so good day. By the way, I am 𝐓𝐿21-30. So for this video, I discuss to you my reflection about agreement on peace between the government of the Republic of the Philippines and the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. So now, this is my reflection. The 1996 agreement between the Moro National Liberation Front or MNLF and the government of the Republic of the Philippines ended more than 2 decades of hostilities. Its cornerstone was the creation of an expanded autonomous region in Mindanao, which must be confirmed in a plebiscite in 1999 or 2000. For the first time, the government of the Philippines and Muslims in Mindanao agreed on a shared understanding of the territorial claim of the Muslims. Muslims gained some protection of their way of life and a recognition of a right to self-government. Furthermore, MNLF leaders were given the opportunity to rule during the transition to a fuller autonomy. Nevertheless, these achievements have been insufficient to attract the support of Christian, Lumads, and even many Muslims. Many factors have weakened the peace process. First, the transitional structures of autonomy do not provide a good basis for future autonomous institution because of mismanagement and corruption. Second, these structures receive little support from groups other than the MNLF, including non-Muslims as well as Muslims, such as supporters of the Moro Islamic Liberation Front. There, the agreement did not address the issue of land rights. Fourth, the peace accord has not produced many of its expected benefits, especially an improvement in living standards for Muslims. By the end of 1998, the peace process had been severely weakened. We could expect that the plebiscite on expanded autonomy will have little success. While the article argues that the 1996 peace agreement is fragile, it also concludes on some options that might strengthen it. This agreement seeks to continue the peace process by reaffirming the parties' commitment to previous agreements and to subsequent negotiations. The agreement also established principles for future talks. The 𝐓𝐻𝐑 also commends the two negotiators from each party, Marvick Leonin for the 𝐺PH and 𝐵𝐻𝐻 for the MILF, as well as the peace process facilitator. The Malaysia government and its representative Tengku Dato bin Ghaffar David Gurman, who represented the 𝐓𝐻𝐑 century in assisting the peace process and was present at the talks for the last 4 years, stated. Marvick Leonin and 𝐵𝐻𝐻 demonstrate the critical combination of tenacity and creativity in finding common ground, yet never failed to represent their principals' interests. Furthermore, without the persistence and careful managing of the process by the Malaysia facilitator, we could never have an agreement. Hello everyone, so good day. By the way, I am 𝐓𝐻𝐑. So for this video, I discuss to you my reflection about report of the cholera epidemic in the Philippines. So now, this is my reflection. In March 1902, it was the 4th year of the Philippine-American War. Many towns in Luzon, hamlet by the Americans, suffered from famine. In Isabela, Emilio Aguinaldo old son be captured. In Batangas, Miguel Malvar felt forced to surrender son, so that rice could be planted in May to top it. All cholera arrived. For the inhabitants of the war-torn areas, it was ultimately a choice between dying of hunger or dying of cholera, wrote historian Reynaldo C. Ilito. In March 1902, a vessels from Hong Kong arrived in Manila carrying cholera. Soon after, the first cases of cholera surfaced. Cholera was impossible to contain because the Filipinos and even the American troops themselves move around carrying the bacteria. Cholera was not selective. It claimed as victims people from different strata of society and ethnicity elite. Masses, Filipinos, Americans, Spaniards, and Chinese. But the lower classes were the hardest hit, especially in certain districts in Manila because of the overcrowding, poor sanitation, and poor diet. By the time the epidemic ended, about 109 to 461 dead to 4,386, of which were in Manila. The cholera epidemic gave way to what Elito calls germ warfare, another stage of the Philippine-American War. During this time, military surgeons became the next wave of pacifiers after the cavalrymen and troops. Search and surveillance were conducted among Filipino homes to ferret out the sick and quarantine them. The Filipino response was concealment and evasion, since they refused to part with their sick family members. Hello everyone, so good day. By the way, I am 𝐓𝐿21-30. So for this video, I discuss to you my reflection about mental the little Tokyo of the pre-war Philippines. So now, this is my reflection. It's an urban legend, maybe a confidential one, since few Filipino nationals or even Davaeños know that during the Commonwealth era, the Japanese community that settled in Davao was among the most progressive in the early days of Davao and left behind a long-lasting legacy that influenced us to this day. In fact, it can be said that this set up the broad strokes for much of the development and economic blueprint of modern Davao. Probably the only city in the country where the Japanese imprint is so strong and so beneficial. Davao, during the days of the Commonwealth era, was found to be a suitable place to cultivate abaca. Land was fertile, weather benevolent, and unlike Bicol, it was safely located away from the typhoon belt. Nothing but a few decaying Japanese monuments, graveyard stele inscribed with Japanese characters in the cemetery. A concrete pyramid, badly Japanese characters in the cemetery. A concrete pyramid, badly broken down, next to a chief obelisk memorial to 𝐾𝐎𝐿, located in what is now the public school football field. Only the ruined bottom of the front steps of the former hospital remains, hiding away in the back of the public market that has taken over the original hospital site. The heritage possibilities for a barrio like mental are endless. But first, the residents have to rediscover and relive their Japanese heritage, the very thing that gives them the culture significance that sets them apart from their neighbors. Once the culture significance is rediscovered, pride of place sits in. It is the touchstone to community redevelopment for additional income generating projects for locals to own their barrio and look out for its future. Thinking of vegan, once the locals rediscovered the uniqueness of their city doors and possibilities opened up, houses were restored and reused for different purposes. Plazas and streets were improved, new business blossomed, and tourists started coming in droves. Davao is a city of migrants, of people who have settled there from all over the Philippines. Among its earliest and most influential migrant groups were the Japanese, who deserve more things and recognition for their legacy than what they receive today. Hello everyone, so good day. By the way, I am 𝐓𝐿21-30. So for this video, I discuss to you my reflection about post-war Philippine o RP US military agreement. So now, this is my reflection. The Mutual Defense Treaty between the Republic of the Philippines and the United States of America, or MDF, is a treaty that was signed on August 30, 1951 in Washington, D.C. between representatives of the Philippines and the United States. The overall accord contains 8 articles and dictates for both nations to support each other if an external party attacks the Philippines or the United States. The Philippines became a colony of the United States following the Spanish-American War and the subsequent Philippine-American War in 1935 under the terms of the Tidings-McDuffie Act. The Philippines became a self-governing Commonwealth. The Philippine Commonwealth with the whole independence plan 14 years later, delayed by World War II and the Japanese invasion and occupation in the Philippines. The Philippines became fully independent on July 4, 1946. Following independence, there remained in the Philippines a strong American military presence, including a number of United States military bases in the Philippines, all allowed by treaties between the newly independent Philippines and the United States. There were also a number of treaties that create a strong bond between the Philippines and the United States, which give both countries rights not enjoyed by other nations. The Mutual Defense Treaty between the Republic of the Philippines and the United States of America was signed on August 30, 1951 in Washington, D.C. between representatives of the Philippines and the United States. A review of the MDT was ordered by Philippine Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana on 28 December 2018 with to maintain it, straighten it, or scrap it as the end goal. On 11 February 2020, the Philippines notified the U.S. that it intended to withdraw from the Visiting Forces Agreement, which may impact the MDT. It reversed its decision in June 2020. In 2021, after the Philippines filed a diplomatic protest over a new Chinese law that may put Filipino fishers in danger, U.S. Secretary of State Antony reaffirmed that U.S. commitment to the MDT. Hello everyone, so good day. By the way, I am 𝐓𝐿21-30. So for this video, I discussed to you my reflection about 1972 to 1986 address on Program of Economic Recovery. So now, this is my reflection. As the Philippines emerged from strict lockdown, it has become the government's highest priority to prevent an economic crisis. The country is in its first recessions in 3 decades. To support the Philippine government's economic recovery programs, Australia works innovatively with key partners to strengthen policies and institutions and advance inclusive economic growth, advancing multilateral partnership for economic development, or AMPED, supports exclusive economic growth by working with key multilateral financial institutions, or MFIs, to strengthen the Philippine government's economic management capacity. AMPED is a catalytic investment designed to leverage substantially larger MFI resources to positively influence Philippine government development policies. There have been some bright spots in our economic performance these past few months. Inflation has fallen and pressures are easing on both food and fuel prices. More than 1 million more Americans are now at work than a year ago. And recently, there has even been a small crack in interest rates. But let me be the first to say that our problems won't suddenly disappear next week, next month, or next year. We're just starting down a road that I believe will lead us out of the economic swamp we've been in for so long. I'll take time for the effect of the tax rate reductions to be felt in increased savings, productivity, and new jobs. It will also take time for the budget cuts to reduce the deficits which have brought us near runaway inflation and reduced interest rates. The important thing now is to hold to a firm, steady course. Tonight, I want to talk with you about the next steps that we must take on that course. Additional reduction in federal spending that will help lower our interest rates, our inflation, and bring us closer to whole economic recovery. The important thing now is to hold to a firm, steady course. Tonight, I want to talk with you about the next steps that we must take on that course. Additional reductions in federal spending that will help lower our interest rates, our inflations, and bring us closer to whole economic recovery. These deficits have been piling up every year, and some people here in Washington just threw up their hands in despair. Maybe you'll remember that we were told in the spring of 1980 that the 1981 budget, the one we have now, would be balanced. Will that budget, like so many in the past, hemorrhage badly and wound up in a sea of red ink? Hello everyone, so good day. By the way, I am 𝐓𝐑𝐄𝐍𝐓. So for this video, I discuss to you my reflection about 1986 to present 1987 Constitution. So now, this is my reflection. My reflection in 1987 Constitution Aquino began her term by repealing many of the Marcos era regulations that had oppressed the people for so long. In March, she issued a unilateral proclamation establishing a provisional constitution. These constitutions give the president broad powers and great authority, but Aquino promised to use them only to restore democracy under a new constitution. This new constitution was drafted in 133 days by an appointed constitutional commission of 48 members and ratified by the people in a plebiscite held on February 2, 1987. It was largely modeled on the American Constitution, which had so greatly influenced the 1935 Constitution, which had so greatly influenced the 1935 Constitution, but it also incorporated Roman, Spanish, and Anglo law. The 1987 Constitution established a representative democracy with power divided among three separate and independent branches of government: the executive, a bicameral legislature, and the judiciary. There were three independent constitutional commissions as well: the Commission on Audit, the Civil Service Commission, and the Commission on Election. Integrated into the Constitution was a whole Bill of Rights, which guaranteed fundamental civil and political rights, and it provided for free, fair, and periodic elections. In comparison with the weak document that had given Marcos a legal fiction behind which to hide, this constitution seemed ideal to merry Filipinos emerging from 20 years of political repression and oppression. Approved the 1986 Constitutional Commission on October 12, 1986, the 1987 Constitutions of the Republic of the Philippines was presented to President Corazon C. Aquino on October 15, 1986. It was ratified on February 2, 1987 by a plebiscite. However, the Congress shall promulgate its rules for the canvassing of the certificates. The Supreme Court, sitting in bank, shall be the sole judge of all contents relating to the election, returns, and qualification of the President or Vice President, and may promulgate its role for the purpose. Constitutional divide three branches: the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. So, the executive branch is headed by the President and his appointed cabinet. The President is the head of the state and the chief executive, but that is subject to significant checks for the other branches, especially in time of emergency, which, given the history of the country, was obviously intended to be a safeguard against a repeat of Marcos martial law despotism. For example, in cases of national emergency, the President can still declare martial law, but not for a period longer than 60 days. Congress can revoke this decision by a majority vote, or it can also extend it for a period to be determined by the Congress. Additionally, the Supreme Court can review the declaration to decide if there were sufficient facts to justify martial law. The President can grant pardons and amnesty. He is also empowered to make or accept foreign loans. He cannot, however, enter into treaties without the consent of the Senate. The President and Vice President are elected at large by a direct vote, but the President may only serve 1 6-year term. The Cabinet, consisting of the President, advisors, and heads of departments, is appointed by the President, and it assists him in his governance functions. The legislative power is vested in a Congress, which is divided into two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. The 24 members of the Senate are elected at large by a popular vote and can serve no more than 2 consecutive 6-year terms. The House is composed of 250 elected members. Most of these representatives are elected by district for 3-year terms, but 20% of the total membership is chosen in proportion to party representation. Besides the exclusive power to legislate, one of the most important powers of Congress is the ability to declare war, which is done through a 2/3 vote in both houses. Even the power to legislative, however, is subject to an executive check. The President retains the power to veto a bill passed by both houses, and Congress may override this veto only with a 2/3 vote in both houses. The court system in the Philippines exercises the judicial power of government, and it is made up of a Supreme Court and lower court created by law. Despite the Constitution clear intent to institutionalize democracy, equality, and grounds for decentralization and economic growth, the Philippines continues to suffer from unequal development, with most economic and political activity focused in Metro Manila. Service delivery is viewed as unresponsive, and conflict, especially in Mindanao, has continued to present challenge for peace and prosperity. The Constitution also established 3 independent constitutional commissions. The Civil Service Commissions act as a central agency in charge of government personnel. The Commission on Election enforces and administers all election laws and regulations to ensure that they are free and fair for all involved. Finally, the Commissions on Audit examine all funds, transactions, and property accounts of the government and its agencies. Each of these commissions is given governing and financial autonomy from the other branches of government to ensure unbiased decision making. All decisions made by these commissions are reviewable by the Supreme Court. To further ensure the ethical and lawful function of the government, the Constitution also creates an office of the Ombudsman to investigate complaints regarding public corruption, unlawful behavior of public officials, and other public misconduct. The Ombudsman can then charge such misbehaving public officials before a special court called the Sandigan Bayan. The Ombudsman is also independent administratively and financially from the other branches of government, although the President is vested the power to appoint the Ombudsman and his deputies from a list also prepared by the Judicial and Bar Council for single 7-year terms. Only the House has the power to initiate impeachment of the President, the members of the Supreme Court, and a few other constitutionally protected public officials like the Ombudsman. The Senate is then supposed to try the impeachment case. Each of these aforementioned independently agencies was created for the purpose of promoting moral and ethical conduct in government. Hello everyone, so by the way, I am 𝐓𝐿21-30. So for this video, I discussed to you my reflection about revolution in other parts of Mindanao. So now this is my reflection. Although the 1896 events that transpired in Manila and suburbs hardly affect the stability of Davao region. In the last few years of Spanish colonial rule, there were minor disturbances that occurred elsewhere in Mindanao. As a result of the uprising of the Katipunan, an association of anti-Spanish revolutionaries, unrest were recorded in Cotabato and Fort Victoria near Iligan, but were promptly nipped in the bud by authorities. In September 1896, 3 Jesuits sailed to Saragini and Nuin, now part of Jose Abad Santos, Davao Occidental, in search of a new mission site. Another missionary, Father Vicente Balongar, SG traveled to the northern part of the Gulf on similar trip, drawn by the positive news that some Muslims had sought Christian baptism in and around Davao Gulf. Months earlier, towards the end of February 1896, Father Eusebio Baraudo SG took over Caraga as parish priest from Father Felipe Ramo SG, who was transferred to Tamuntaka, Bukidnon. During this period, plans to establish separate missions in Manay and Mati were considered. Although affected by fever, Father Barado, with the help of Father Gregorio Parachi SG, visited all the southern rejections under his mission, making conversions, seeing mass, and conducting baptism. Through all this, there was no report of an upcoming unrest in Manila. The first clear sign that the revolutions had reached Davao could be found in the November 1 letter of Father Orius. Then the Jesuit hid in the district. To his superior, he observed that the local residents, despite the unrest that had erupted in Manila, remained impervious. But the impression changed 3 weeks later when Father Jaime Estrada SG expressed concern over the seemingly unaffected behavior of Davao inhabitants on the ongoing conflict in the national capital region, blaming the uprising on insincere authorities. In Manay, after the previous year's village poll was annulled in Manila, a new election was held to choose the village leader or captain, and the justice of the peace or jus de paz. In the first balloting, Teodoro, Pichon, and Marianito Sobriscari were considered sure winners due to their overwhelming leads. This and other developments, Cho remained confined in Luzon. In April 1897, 5 persons were reported killed in the Manay missions, but no motive was reported for the crime. Still, the proselytization continued on the opening of settlements remain. For instance, Father Manuel Vallis, the new Caraga Priory, founded the San Miguel Mission with an initial population of 25 families, but was accessible only by hiking 10 hours from Baganga. In the last quarter of 1897, 2 significant events changed the Katipunan movement. On November 1, Aguinaldo established the Republic of Biak na Bato, and on December 14, the Pact of Biak na Bato, which called for an end to the revolution, was signed between Governor General A. Fernando Primo de Rivera and Aguinaldo. 2 persons of Spanish descent figured in the run to the Philippine revolutions, namely Don Prudencio Garcia and Manuel Sanchez Garcia, a Spanish mestizo soldier from Albay with Masonic affiliation, was sent to Mindanao as part of the plan to consolidate the Spanish forces in the islands. He arrived in southern Philippines in the 1880s as commander of the Tercio Civil, an infantry regiment that was exclusively operating in Mindanao. He was first assigned in Surigao, where he married the daughter of a member of the elite. Later, he was transferred to Baganga, where he constructed a fort, and inside it a chapel was built in honor of Our Lady of Pilar. Sanchez, on the other hand, was a deserter from the Spanish army in Cuba, who was deported to Mindanao and settled in Cristina, Darong, Santa Cruz, Davao del Sur. Early missionary accounts showed he fell out of favor from the clergy and was forced to move out of Davao by 1897. He was living in Ligig, Surigao del Sur, where he cultivated a coffee and abaca plantation. Again, he courted the ire of the missionaries after Dean Price were asked by the government to report any Masonic or anti-Spanish individuals in the area. To those who knew Sanchez, he was a vulgar person, ill-mannered and immoral. The circumstances are not clear how Sanchez was able to link with Garcia, but the letter of the Jesuits show that towards the end of 1898, Manila was informed of the developments obtaining in Baganga. Eventually, the rise of the Katipunan and the declaration of war between Spain and the United States reached Caraga to contain whatever initial reaction in the area. Garcia instructed Sanchez, who had a military background, to intercept the inter-islands vessels Bilbao and disarm the military outposts in Caraga with orders to refrain from making insidious comment against the charge and spin Sanchez. However, defying Garcia's restrictions, he placed under house arrest two missionaries and forced them to pay 500 pesos in exchange for their freedom. Unable to extract the desired amount, he decided to accept intent of the reason, but only with the Jesuit for a day. The day after, the deserter imprisoned one of the priests again, put him under guard inside the courthouse, and took two bundles of clothing and 8 or 10 rolls of textiles, which the missionary kept for dressing the convent boys and the newly baptized. Convinced of the mission, in the end an agreement was formed. Brother Jose Coron's SG Wald remained in the Caraga convent to take care of the animals, but Father Manuel Valles SG had to go to Baganga with Sanchez on October 27, 1898. Sanchez, Father Valles, and 24 native soldiers carrying 14 guns pilfered from the courthouse depart for Baganga for fear of retaliation. Local residents stayed away from the group and remained holed up in their respective houses.